So we live? All right, that's
We
what I'm
live.
talking about. We live.
All right.
What's up, Eric?
What's going on,
What's
man?
going on, man? The Unfan is live. This is our first videotaping, man. I'm so happy to be here. I'm glad you agreed to join me on this. I just say season or venture in my life or whatever, man. We just trying to make it do what it do. The biggest thing is we're gonna talk about what the Unfan is about. I think the biggest thing, so we can let the people out there know what the Unfan is about. It's just the biggest thing is it's sports talk radio, and not even radio. It's a sports podcast, and what we're doing is, like I said, we are trying to get rid of the fanatic in sports, the fanatic in the commentary. Trying to bring what we call I'll say like a fair and honest dialogue. And I want to be fair. Sports is something that I love. I love sports, all sports, you name it: football, basketball, tennis, baseball, soccer, boxing, you name it.
Golf.
I love it. And the reason why I wanted to call it Unfan, because when I say fanatic, when we talk about fanatic, is I was one of those fanatics. I was one of those people that went crazy when I saw games. I was one of those people that was like emotionally affected. I invested so much into the sports. I mean, it was hard to have conversations with me when it came to sports. And I realized that it was affecting my relationships. It was affecting everything. And then I started noticing some of the attacks, especially with social media or with even, ESPN or everything, especially with American sports, just the attack on the athletes and things like that. And I think it was just really starting to sour something that I love. And that's the biggest reason why I started calling the Unfan. Get rid of the fanatic. I think there's no place for, there's a certain level of fanaticism, but it's gotten to the point where it's just out of control. Not just the fanatics, just some of the stuff that's out there in the news, some of the articles they write, some of the expectations that players or athletes are being held to compared to. It's just a ridiculous. It's ridiculous, some of the things that you see out there. And my whole thing is, I'm protecting the athlete. I'm on the side of the athletes. Not every one of them. My whole thing is, maybe we can call them, call it like we see it. Be realistic about what we see. We talk about a game. We talk about a match. We talk about an athlete. We're going to be realistic about it. And we don't make it personal. I don't believe in making things personal. I don't take it personal. I had to take that personal side, get rid of making things personal. I had to get rid of that investing so much into sports and athletes to the point where I couldn't have an objective or a sincere, honest, and level-headed view. I feel like there's no how do you say it nowadays? There's no grace on the athletes. There's no grace for the athletes, and I feel like there's just unwanted attention or unwanted attacks or unnecessary attacks on the athletes.
Well, for me, I think I needed to take that objectiveness out of it, because at the end of the day, the next day after the event is over with, I had nothing. I wasn't receiving anything from this. So, except for the fact that, it may have been my favorite team or whatever. So whether they won or lost, okay, at the end of the day, I'm not getting a paycheck from it. I'm just happy that my team won, or sad that my team lost. But at the end of the day, I've got to take away from the fanatic part about it, that okay, now it's affecting my life, it's affecting my relationships, because I'm so invested in this sport or this particular game. But at the end of the day, that investment that I've put in, I don't get a return from it, whether my team wins or loses. So I like the team that I like, but then again, at the end of the day, if they lose, then life goes on. If they win, I'm not going and celebrating. I'm not getting a ring or anything like that. I'm happy, but then again, I got to realize, so I got to keep a level head about this. So for me, that's when you said the Unfan, and I kind of got that when we're talking about, it can take a fanatic out of it. So that's what I saw. So I wanted to take that out of it. And that's why I try to keep a level head, whether or not it's a team that I like, a team that I don't like, a player that I'm fond of or not fond of. Or I don't necessarily want to see in this day and age where you got social media and all this and that kind of stuff, people can just dump on somebody and troll on somebody and
That's what they call it now. They troll.
Yeah, and get away with it, say whatever they want to say, and think it's okay.
Even some of the commentators,
Yeah.
I think you look at it, some of the things that's being said out there, whether it's socially, some of the social consciousness, or those things that have been said. But when you look at some of the fans, some of these fans it makes no sense for somebody to go to a game and have to worry about their life at a game.
Right.
Or go to a match and have to worry about their life, or something be said. I think people are taking it too far where they think that you can't even, you look at some of the things, I look at some of my friends, sometimes it's fun, but I don't think I can type fast enough to say what I want to say when I hear some of the stuff that comes out of there. You see some of the memes that they put on Facebook
Right.
and social media, and I'm sitting up here like, how can you talk about athletes like that as if these athletes aren't human?
Right.
Number one, they don't. Number two, they don't have kids.
Right. They don't have families.
They have
things of that nature.
families.
So,
They're trying to feed their families. People act like there should be no emotion in sports sometimes. And then, you look at it, shows like ESPN and some of the stuff that's being said out there. Oh, I'm not, we're going to get into that sooner or later. But
yeah.
when you look at some of the stuff that they say, and you have a following and some of the stuff that they say, I feel like when you look at a lot of these leagues out here, a lot of these athletes, they're, I think they're making bad decisions. I think the teams, I think I really believe that the teams, I really believe that the ownerships are making bad decisions based on a few people's opinions. And a lot of those opinions are bad because when you look at some of the attacks on some of the players, I mean, these guys go out, they put in hard work. They put in a lot. And then you get somebody that says something, and you look at it, everybody's offended by something. And next thing you know, you got it where a team is just doing whatever they can to get rid of a person based off of, instead of, is it about winning anymore? Or is it about how you look? I mean, your sports are emotional. Sports are, when you look at it, football, basketball, contact sports, there's going to be a lot of emotion and things like out there. And I also feel like we're holding athletes to an expectation as if they're how do you say, as if they're running for office or something like that, as if they're politicians, trying to control your money or control your ability to have a job, and that's not the case. And I think some people are just taking it too far. You look at, I give you an example of some of the Philly fans. You go to a Philadelphia Eagles game, the way that they treat those granted, I was happy they won the Super Bowl, but I could, the fans, I'm gonna get away from that because I'm not just gonna dump on them, but they take it too far.
Well, I've always heard that Philly fans, they were true fanatics. So
yeah,
it is what it is. I mean, but then again, when you talk about holding athletes to a certain standard
or unrealistic expectations,
I mean, you might have unrealistic expectations if you're talking about comparing, an athlete to some politician or somebody who's running for office. But then again, those standards have changed now as well. Those standards have changed. But then again, there's no perfect individual. People are going to make mistakes. If somebody makes a stand about something or what they believe in, and you choose to denigrate that individual or take their livelihood away from them because of it, and you make it out to be something that is really not, then all you're doing is you had it out for that individual in the first place.
What do you think about the 24-hour news? I consider the 24-hour sports cycle. It's like you can't even celebrate a team winning anymore. You know what I'm saying? I remember back when ESPN first started. I used to watch ESPN religiously.
Mm-hmm.
And a team would win a championship. And you could celebrate that team for, say, at least 3 months. I mean, where it's about that team,
Yeah.
But every time you turn around, there's a news cycle. And when you look at some of titles that they give things when you look at it. The way that they label this stuff, I get it. In America, negativity sells. I get
Yeah.
it. But when you look at it, it used to be where you could celebrate a team. Now you can't even celebrate a team winning. Braves won the pennant back in what, 94, 95. I was big, I love the Braves,
Okay.
I remember that team, but I got to celebrate my Braves winning for a few months, what I meant by celebrate.
Okay.
Enjoy that before we moved on to the next champion. Enjoy the Pittsburgh Penguins winning. Enjoy the Lakers or the Chicago Bulls winning.
Okay.
Enjoy the Dallas Cowboys, even though I'm not a cowboy. I'm not a cowboy, man. I'm just saying, when they won, you knew that they won. It lasted. Nowadays, team win, it's like people forget about it the next day. And they're on to the next thing. And it's so much that they're feeding the people is causing people to just react in the worst ways. I really believe it.
Well, I mean, with 24-hour news or sports or whatever you want to call it, you get an opportunity to cover a lot more stuff
Mhm.
that you didn't in the past. So if you weren't the big three or whatever you want to call it, football, basketball, baseball, or something like that. So when you won a Super Bowl or you won the World Series or you won the NBA championship, you can celebrate that for a while. But now you've got so much going on that's covered. You've got coverage channels for every sport. You've got coverage channels for golf. You've got coverage channels for tennis. You've got coverage channels for NASCAR, baseball, basketball, football, soccer, all these other sports. So you always got something covered. I mean, UFC, you got every channel, every sport pretty much has, their own channel. And then not just that, now you've got at the college level, you've got the schools having their own.
Yeah.
The conferences and some schools, depending on what school it is, they
Mhm.
have their own channels.
Yeah.
So you've got you've got more an abundance of coverage of sports nowadays than you did before.
But what I'm talking about is like most people get their information from we know number one, ESPN.
Mm-hmm.
Number two, maybe Fox Sports
Right.
or certain channels. But what I'm saying is, when you look at it and you look at what they say, 1 minute you got, oh, they won the championship. Next minute, where's this person going? Where's this person going? Where's this person going? Let's just kind of focus on the championships right now. Let them enjoy it. I mean, that's how I use. Those were things that I enjoyed about sports. But but then it's like people are pulling everything out. Oh, I was reading something. They were like, do you think even the questions that are being asked are just terrible? You know what I'm saying? You got it. They got the news cycle. Then they'll ask they'll ask people, do you think this person is good for that team? And then the people will give an answer, and you're sitting up there like, wow, they don't get it. Some people just don't get it. They don't understand. Mm-hmm. They're not looking at the sport for what it is. They're not looking at the reality of how teams or a player did something, and then they sit up there, they use words like, oh, well, suck, or he's garbage, or he's this. And then when you ask them why, they can't even explain. Their explanation is something personal.
Yeah.
Or it is so ridiculous. It's so off the wall. I was talking to I'll give you an example. I was talking to my neighbor, and my neighbor, he tells me, he asked me, well, who do you think is going to be strong in the East? I said, Boston is going to be the team. I said, if Boston could stay healthy, Boston is winning. He said, no, they're young and they're immature. I said, how? Because they got all this young talent. And I was like, well, the young talent just got them to Game 7 of the NBA of the Eastern Conference Finals.
Right.
Yeah, but Kyrie, they're going to let so many people go. I was like, nah. I was like, where you get that information from? Danny Ainge ain't. I was like, dude, where is your information? He was just pulling whatever he could, and it made no sense. And my whole thing is, how do we make sense? How do we make sense for the people? How do we get people to understand that we're trying to make sense? Not just make sense, show grace, not ever that you got to stop taking stuff so personal. I get it. You love
Right.
your
You gotta
team. I
take
get
the-
it. You
you
love
gotta
a
take the
player.
personal out
But
of it.
yeah, how do we get people to take the personal? Because when I talk sports, I take the personal out of it. I don't get personal on nobody. I notice that a lot of commentators get a little personal. I watch a lot of shows. I watch shows just to see where they go. I remember I used to watch, what is it? That show with Greeny and whatever, I don't
Okay.
know, that show. Now they got Get
Yeah.
Up, where
Mhm.
people who I used to respect, now I see them on shows like that. Or what was it? What's that show with Stephen A. Smith on? Oh man, help me. I don't know why I'm drawing a blank right
I
now,
know what
but
you're
you know what
talking
it
about,
is.
right.
You had shows like Around the Horn, and I used to, when I was younger, until I started, I thought that these were legit people who knew what they were talking about. And as I moved forward and got older and started listening more, I realized they intentionally, and they call it selling, but the stuff that they do, they intentionally mess with these players' livelihood, their money. They put things out there. They report things as if they're the 6 o'clock news, local news. The way that they report stuff, the way that they talk about stuff. Yeah, First Take. I think, yeah, that's what it is. First Take.
They're trying to sell themselves. Though.
I get they're trying to sell themselves, but at the expense of trying to destroy a person. When you hear some of the stuff that's being out there and I'm seriously, because when you get, like you said, people find it so easily to be so negative. They don't know how to be graceful. They don't know how to be positive. They don't know how to even give a realistic explanation of what happened in the game. They're so negative to the point where they don't even know how to. I feel like a lot of people don't even know how to find out what was the game-changing play. Everybody always assumes that the game-changing play in a game is the last play of the game.
Right.
When the game-changing play could have been a block, a missed block, or maybe a pass on the basketball court. It could have been a lost dribble that caused the momentum to change, that
Right.
swung the momentum, and they don't even realize it. Those are the things that I look for. But
Yeah.
I'm watching. But back to what I was saying, I'm watching that people are. That when you see these shows like First Take and some of the stuff that they do and some of the stuff that they say and they get up and everything, number one, they judge people.
Yeah, pretty much.
I mean, when I say judge, I'm talking about to a point where I'm sitting up there. I mean, it's gotten to the point where for somebody like me that loves sports, I'm so turned off from the attack on the players, from the attack on the athletes, messing with their money. They're not messing with your money.
Right.
But you're messing with their money. How do you put a question out there? Do you think this person? I get it. Do you think a person is worth that money? In my heart, I may say, I don't really think he's that. But if the team feels that they want to do that, then let the team suffer. Let the team make that mistake. But
Right.
I'm not going to sit up there and question because I don't know the business side. I don't know what's going on. I don't know the financial side of it. Those are things that I'm going to learn. Those are things that we plan on talking about,
Right.
trying to understand, But those are the things that turn me off about sport. Those are the things, not about sports, but the attack on the athlete is what's killing me. And teams, I feel like a lot of teams are suffering because of that. How do you hold an 18-year-old college kid to an expectation as if he's making millions of dollars and he's only in college? He's a freshman, sophomore, or something in college. And people are holding him to an expectation that's unrealistic. And I'm sitting up here like, how do you hold a kid to an expectation or write an article? How do you, as a writer, you're a grown man and you write articles about a 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid that could damage this kid's future? And you could go home and sleep. And I'm sitting up here like, how do you write something or how do you hold a kid to that expectation to write an article like that, damaging this kid? And this kid is what? Especially in men, we mature a little later than women. And I'm only, maybe 3 years removed from junior high. Have you ever seen how a young man acts when he in 9th, 10th grade?
Right.
The maturity level is not there. And
definitely not
their
there.
minds are still growing. So that's what I'm trying to understand. How do people do that? And they sleep at night, and it's just terrible what they do. And that's what I want to get rid of. That's what we're trying to get rid of. I wouldn't say get rid of. I'm trying to put I want the dialogue to be fair.
Exactly.
And fair and understand. That's my thing. I show grace. It's hard for me to hate a player. I may not like him, but I try to figure out, okay, well, where is he affecting everything?
Right. And that's my thing too. I want to show that there's fairness across the board. then again, you do have situations where you have individuals that make some bonehead mistakes. So, I've always said, and even telling my kids, there's you have to be accountable for your actions. So at some point in time, you know, if you do something wrong, you have to be accountable for your actions. But then again, for somebody to make a single mistake and you want to vilify them and just take their livelihood, destroy their career, and take their livelihood away from them for one mistake, that in some situations the punishment doesn't fit the crime, then that's not fair at all.
Yeah.
So if we can have dialogue about that and make sure that individuals are not getting vilified for things that they don't have to, be held accountable for, or you not taking away an individual's livelihood because you don't like what you think they stand for, that's the kind of stuff that I really have an issue with and definitely want to talk about.
And well, when you look at it, there's a lot of contact sports, and when you talk contact sports, and you talk emotion, and you talk about the pressure to win, and you look at the people that you're trying to please, not only are athletes trying to win, especially young athletes, they're trying to win for themselves, but they also want to win for maybe a city or something. But then when you look at it, crazy things happen in sports. Whether it's, you look in soccer, the ball could ricochet off somebody. They can miss a block by accident. I mean, when things are moving that fast, when you look at basketball, those game-winning shots are full court shot, and people are quick to say, well, they should have did this or they should have did that, as if,
like you say, anything can happen. Somebody gets a rebound and doesn't turn around and take a shot when they think they've already won the game.
You got to be aware of what's going on. You got to be aware of your surroundings on that.
You got to have awareness.
But my thing was, after the fact, even with that whole situation that you're talking about, I got some. We'll talk about that, especially once we start talking about the NBA. Really, like I said, that's my whole thing. How do we change the narrative? How do we change the dialogue? How do we get people to understand? How do we get people to talk with us? How do we get people to talk and be able to, say whatever it is or explain reality without taking it to the extreme? There's too many extremists in sports. There's too many extremists. My bad. Not extremists in sports. Yeah. There's too many extremists outside of sports. You know what I'm saying? And when you got the extreme outside of sports that are having too much effect on what goes inside of sports.
What's going on in sports and what's going on with the athletes. So,
yeah. Athletes are human.
Yeah.
The only difference is pro athletes are making millions of dollars. They on TV.
Right.
College athletes are not making millions of dollars. The schools are making millions of dollars.
That they are.
And matter of fact, some schools are making, and the coaches are making millions of dollars. But how can you sit up there and tell, when a kid makes a mistake or a kid didn't set the right block or he had a shot hit in his face or he missed a tackle or he didn't kick the ball at the right time, or he got struck out, and then all of a sudden you got people, this person is this, they terrible, they suck, or he's a bum, he's this, and I'm sitting there like, well, what are you? Right. What are you, the person that's sitting up here judging?
You just sitting up here, having a beverage, watching the game or whatever, and you got all this, you doing all this critiquing.
I remember when Tom Jackson used to talk about T.O. like he was a dog, and I'm sitting up there like, how many players, I granted, T.O., he said a lot. But then the truth started coming out. There was an attack on him. I mean, he had a lot of, he was very charismatic.
Yeah.
He knew he wanted, but how many, even though he talked a lot, and, people used to hear from unnamed sources. Yeah. People from unnamed sources saying, well, he's doing this, but we got this from an unnamed source. If you can't even, my thing is, the one thing that I learned with this whole new unnamed sources, if you don't have a name with it, it ain't true. And that's the thing. People,
Okay.
that's how I feel. If you ain't got a name with it, it ain't true. So you allowing lies. I feel like a lot of lies, and that's my thing. A lot of lies are destroying the careers of people.
Right.
People, but like, they're destroying the careers. They're destroying young kids' futures. There's a lot of lies that aren't even allowing certain kids to even look at certain sports. And we'll get into that at some time. But that was my biggest thing. What do you think?
I think when it comes down to individuals talking about these athletes, current athletes that are playing, I give former athletes a little bit of leeway because they played. But then again, depending on how far back they've, been in the league or whatever, or played their sport, they kind of lose a little bit of their objectivity as well.
Yeah.
They get away from being that former athlete that played the sport to strictly a commentator, and then they're critiquing these folks based upon what the average fan is talking about as well. So for me, I would give some of the players that recent retired players, I'll give them some of the things that they say, a little bit of credibility, because they played the game, they know the sport, they.
But have you ever seen time?
They had to live the life and things of that nature, so they know what kind of goes into what it takes to play this particular sport.
But have you ever seen times where have you ever seen like instances where, one thing people, I get it. Some people say, well, I played the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Playing the sport and knowing the sport is two things.
That is true.
I'll give you an example. I had to learn when I stopped being a fan and I started understanding sports a lot more. It was because of this guy named Mr. West. He was a retired senior master sergeant when I was on active duty Air Force, and he was also coaching my basketball teams, and he taught me how to coach.
Mm-hmm.
I learned a lot of things from him. We had our differences, but then I had to slow down because I was so caught up in my offense towards him because of the playing time that I got or something like that. And then I started learning from him. Me and him became real close. Well, one thing he taught me was how to look at things through a certain lens, and I started learning more and looking at sports and learning and picking up on things and just looking at what I see on TV for what it is and not what I want it to be.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? I think too many people are looking at it for what they want it to be, and they can't. You could watch a sport with somebody that has no idea about the sport, and they look at it through what I call tunnel vision. They can't see they see it like this, but they can't see it like this.
Mm-hmm.
And if you get people to see it like this instead of seeing it like this, then you get all that. You get away from all this stupidity that you hear out there when people are describing or trying to tell you, well, this person is the greatest, or they the greatest, or they're not the greatest, or this person sucked because they had this. And I'm sitting up here, and then you could get a person to look at it realistically. All right, well, he taught me how to look at things realistically, and I started looking at and I learned from him, but he was also learning from me, and that was one thing he knew. I humbled myself in a way where I can, like when you and I first started talking about sports, where you can understand my point, because I was giving you not just, I could listen to what you were saying, and I can give either a rebuttal, or I could agree, or give a rebuttal, and then be like, hey, well, I understand, and you understand where I'm coming from, and I understood where you was coming from, because I felt like your opinion made sense. You could break down certain little things and not, like I said, not take it to the extreme, and talk to people the right way.
All right.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, talk about the sport in the right way. And I felt like we also saw it the same way. I get into little arguments every now and then with my friends, but my fingers can't I give up on the argument when I realize what I'm dealing with sometimes. Number one, because my fingers can't text that fast. And number two, because I feel like I know who I'm dealing with just based on their reactions, curse words, or just overreacting. And they can't even look at a team that they hate realistically, or look at the talent on the team that I get it, you hate the team, but let's just be realistic about the talent. Okay, you hate the player. Okay, you hate the soccer player. Okay, you hate the tennis player.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? But let's be realistic. You know, I pull for all American tennis players, but Roger Federer is, you know, he is. I can respect
The man.
everything. He no, the man when it
Yeah.
comes to tennis. I've met people talk about how great people were back in the days. I'm serious. If any of those guys back in the days had to go against him, he would murder him. I mean, that's just being realistic. But you also have to break down why. What are his strong points? Things like that. What I've seen, what I've observed. Serena Williams, greatest female player I've ever seen.
Right.
You know. But let's look. You know, there are some good players out there. You know who. You know, and let's be real. You know, and another thing, a lot of things that I don't like is how some of the players get caught up in the traps that the media is putting out there for them. I think the media sets traps for them and they walk right into them. And what I mean by like that, the beef. I don't understand the beef between athletes. I don't understand some of the stuff that they be saying and they get out there and they're saying it. Oh, well, I'm gonna say it on social media. Why don't you just call that man up? I'm sure you could get his telephone number. I'm sure athletes get in touch and then, you know, just talk it out with him and tell him, hey, this is what I meant, instead of responding like that. And half of the ones that be responding, next thing you know, they disappear. And you're like,
it's human nature.
I
And then
get it,
folks-
but it's
folks
ridiculous.
have their pride and things of that nature, so you're gonna always have it. Unfortunately, everybody's not gonna like everybody. Everybody's not gonna think, okay, your game is as good as mine and things of that nature. So you can always have it. You know, some folks are going to get more shine than other folks, and other folks ain't going to be too happy about it.
Yeah, I see
So-
that a lot. Yeah, but I think it's the response. It's just how they respond sometimes. There's a lot of, it's like shoot first, ask questions later. I rather, you know what I mean? Some of their response or some of the stuff that they say sometimes is, I'm a go over the top.
At the end of the day, to me, one of the things that we've both touched on is fairness, and the other thing is humility.
Yeah.
If you don't have those things, that's where you are not going to give an individual a fair share, a fair shake. If you don't have, if you're not going to be fair, you're not going to have humility, then more than likely that's where you're going to have that fanatic, because they're not going to be concerned about whether or not their team won or lost, or whether or not they like an individual, or things or like or dislike an individual, because they don't have that fairness and they don't have humility for other individuals or other human beings.
I see it was, I call them, yeah, you know, one thing I picked up, I call them casual fans. Those are some of the worst ones. Casual fans can mess it up. I feel like fanatics are messing it up for people who truly love sports. If you love sports, you're gonna talk about it the right way. You're gonna show humility and you're gonna see it for what it is.
Right.
If you're a casual fan or you really don't love it, then you're gonna be concerned about the worst things. You're gonna be concerned about every little thing that doesn't even matter. Is the guy playing for your team? Are they winning? Well, I don't care if he bought. He stole a bag. Well, I ain't gonna say he stole a bag of chips. I don't care. I'm not saying that what they're doing is right. All I'm saying is, when are we gonna stop? When are we gonna stop? You know, when do we get to the point? When do we change the narrative? When do we get to a point to where we can have fair and honest dialogue?
That's what we're here
my
for.
whole thing. That's what the unfan is.
That's
here
what
for.
we're here for.
Fair and honest dialogue. I think I done talked about a whole bunch of things. I may have
That's
even
what
jumped
we're
some
here for.
subjects. You know, I might even jump from subject to subject because I got so much that I want to say, and there's so many things. You know, the interviews that we're gonna have, you know, with some of the people, man. I want to make sure that you know, these athletes understand that, yo, we're on your side. Now we're gonna hold you accountable.
Exactly.
But we're not gonna hold you accountable in the way to where we're trying to destroy your ability to feed your family, or hold you accountable in the way that it gets people out there making nonsensical, if that's a word, nonsensical comments or posting things as if, now, you know, my thing is how, you know, how can you write certain things or say certain things, but then it happened to you and you go off the deep end. You
Right.
can't be that way. You can't say what you want to say about a LeBron James or a Kobe Bryant, or you can't say what you want to say about Durant, or you can't say what you want to say about a certain baseball player or tennis player, soccer player, or you name it. You name any sport, golf. and then turn around and hold them to an expectation you're not willing to hold yourself, and then sit up there and say some of those things, and there be no recourse or
Right.
things like that. I think if I really believe, I really believe that's what we got to get to. I think that we got to get to a point where, man, we got to say, hey, let's have fair, honest dialogue. Let's have some fun with it, but let's just be real about what's going on. Let's be real about the NBA Finals. Let's be real about who's the top dog in the NBA. I know you wanted to be this dude. Mm-hmm. Let's be real about who's number one in the NFL. Who's this? Who's that? Whose team is this? Whose coach is this? Let's be real about whose tennis player is this? What soccer player is this? Let's be real about how you got the wrong people putting the wrong stuff out there, and you people are feeding into it. Let's just be real about that. Let's be real about who's real or fake out there on these so-called commentators or these so-called analysts that consider themselves real, but they've already compromised their integrity based on some of the comments that they made about about certain athletes and things like that. Let's be real about the lies or the narrative let's be real about everything, and let's talk about it.
They put their feelings into it already.
Yeah. So let's get the feelings out, and let's get to reality.
Let's get some fair and humble dialogue.
Yeah.
About these athletes.
I know sometimes, man, you see something. I ain't gonna lie, there's some things I be seeing out there. People be posting. I be like, yo, man, these are some idiots. Maybe that's a strong word, but that's a strong word. I don't like using. One word I don't like using, crazy. I don't like using words like crazy because that's being dismissive. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna try to understand where people are coming from. But they. There are some crazy people out there based on how they respond, the stuff that they post, the videos that they post, the memes that they post, not even just what they post. When you just sit down having a conversation with a dude, he's sitting up there asking you about the game, and then you sit up there, well, what do you think about this person? Well, I think this, this is what I observed. And next thing you know, they going bananas, and they like, oh, you crazy, you stupid, you don't know nothing. And I'm like, well, why ask my opinion?
Because it's different from theirs. That's why you get that response.
Apparently you don't know.
Right.
Let's talk about it. Let's be real about it. People say, oh, well, Floyd Mayweather runs all the time. No, let's be real about it. He's standing right there in front of him, but because of his movement, they can't hit him. Because of his defense, they can't hit him. Oh, he ain't never knocked nobody out. When did you start watching Floyd Mayweather box? Oh, I started watching him around this. I've been watching that dude since he was 17 years old. And trust me, the first 20-some fights he ever had, he was knocking brothers out. His hands were nice. His hands, the nicest hands, his defense, things like that. Let's be real about that. Let's talk about reality. He was a knockout artist. Let's talk about his skills. Oh, well, he don't do this, but he's beat everybody. Oh, well, Triple G do this. Why are we trying to compare Triple G? Been at 170 pounds forever. Floyd Mayweather jumped up from from 105 to 155. He can't even get past 155 because his body won't let him. Yeah. So you trying to call it. How about he's beating everybody that y'all said was the next man that was going to. Let's be real about that. You may not agree with his lifestyle. Cool. I don't agree with everything that he does. I don't agree with some of those things, but I'm going to keep it. I don't get personal. I don't never want to get personal. I'll never get personal. I want to sit up there. Let's talk about the man's career. Let's talk about his skills. You want to talk about LeBron James? Oh, LeBron James never be Michael Jordan. He'll never be this. But let's talk about LeBron James' skills. Let's talk about who he is right now. Stop holding on to Michael. Michael's retired. Michael retired in, 2000? Maybe 2001? Let's get over it. He's gone. It's almost 20 years later. The same thing that y'all saying about the same thing that y'all said about Kobe Bryant is the same thing that they were saying about Michael Jordan when I was a young kid in the 80s when he was my favorite basketball player. And there are all these older men and everybody and even some of the NBA players were saying Michael Jordan will never win a championship because he don't know how to lead a team and he's a ball hog. Those are things that I had to hear, that I had to listen, I had to suffer through. But he got it together. but you can't dismiss. You can't talk about his career when he started. But when he started winning championships, before you start talking about his career or what people thought about him before. So let's just be real about it. People talk about Kobe Bryant, but let's look at it. Let's look at it. Probably since Wilt Chamberlain, the best scorer the NBA ever had.
I mean, it's always going to be a challenge to compare athletes from different eras, because when you look at folks like Michael, of course you can say greatest of all times, but then again, you have folks like LeBron that come along, and then you see the numbers that he puts up, the numbers that he's put up for scoring, for points in the playoffs and things of that nature. You got to realize, okay, they're playing more games. You've been in the playoffs a whole lot longer.
You think it's a jealousy thing with LeBron?
They're playing the same amount of games, during the season, but now he's played more games in the playoffs and things of that nature. So you're going to have the numbers and things of that nature. So the numbers are going to be different. Your caliber of talent that you're going against is a little bit different as well. So it's going to always be a little something different, because look, you talk about what Westbrook is doing, has done the past couple of years, but then again, the Big O did it, back in the day. And if you want to talk about putting folks in the caliber of being one of the greatest players, you can always put him in there. You can put Bill Russell in there, but their numbers differ from Michael's, from LeBron's, Kobe's, and it has to do with the time.
I think the biggest thing is to be able to, when it comes to those three, and when we will have our conversation about them, we're going to break it down so that people understand. Break it down so it can forever and consistently be broke. That's my little Love Jones thing. So, if you ever saw Isaiah, I forgot his name, he said it on Love Jones. But honestly, I think that's the biggest thing. I think we break it down for people. I think we get people to understand. I think if we have fair, honest dialogue, we get rid of fanatic, which is why we call it the unfan. Right. If we do that, I think people understand. People learn how to talk. I know. I get it. We ain't gonna be able to reach everybody. Right. You can never expect to be able to get to everybody. Right. You can't even expect that. Man, I can't. If I tell you some of my family members, I can't even have an honest dialogue. Man, they go to extreme, and you just sit there. You find yourself sitting there like, Lord, I wish I could get them to stop. But anyways, we ain't gonna get into that. But like I said, Eric, man, first show, the Unfan. Check out our Facebook page. That's what I'm saying. I'm Damien Cole, the host. This is Eric Jones, co-host. We call it the Unfan. Getting rid of fanatic, having fair, honest dialogue. Also, I just want to say shout out to my man Marcus Haynes, my video guy. Shout out to Yo, I'm bugging right now. I'm tripping right now. How am I gonna forget my sound man named Darius Bird, man? He hooked up the sound and everything. Shout out to my sound man. Shout out to Darius Bird. Shout out to Marcus Haynes, my video guy. Also, shout out to my partner right here, Eric, man. Thanks for coming through. Good, man. We're gonna keep putting them out, man. We're gonna keep putting these videos out. Look, definitely. Everybody, I just hope everybody looks at. I hope everybody likes it. I hope we can have some dialogue. I hope when we do our blogs, I hope that people can give their opinions. Get it honest and fair opinions. If you don't like it, you don't like it. I hope that you love it. I hope that everybody loves it. I hope that they get that we become a household name. And I want the players out there. I want the athletes out there to know that they got somebody in their corner. They got somebody in their corner. They ain't got people out here writing busted stories, believing the hype. They ain't got people out here that's going to try to destroy their names. They got somebody that's on their side. I'm not out here to make a name for myself. I'm out here because I love this. I love sports. It's something I love, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to protect sports. I'm trying to protect the athlete, because we have some people out there that probably never played sports in their life, but they like it, and they're destroying it for everybody else because of the things that they write, the things that they say, and we're trying to get away from that. That's our whole thing. That's why we call it unfan. Get rid of the fanatic, because what is fan short for? Fanatic. We get rid of the fanatic. We start bringing in the love of the sports, the love of sports, period, man. And I think we can do some big things. That's my whole thing. Just letting everybody know. So until the next time, man, thanks for coming through, Eric.
We out.
All right.